Live from the 22 News Broadcast Center, your local election headquarters. This is a Westfield mayoral debate. And now, here's Rich Teddemer.
Good afternoon and welcome to your special Your Election Headquarters presentation. 22 News has been doing a series of debates this week with candidates running for mayor in local cities, and today is our final debate. We're here with the Westfield mayoral candidates, and joining me in studio today is Police Captain Mike McCabe and State Senator Don Humison. Gentlemen, thanks for being here today. We appreciate it. We'll start with opening statements. Each candidate has 1 minute to give an opening statement, and by virtue of a drawing, Don Humison, you go first.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Don Humison. I'm the state senator for the city of Westfield, but I'm also a candidate now for mayor for that city. I appreciate the chance to be here, and hopefully folks will tune in and spread the word from what they've heard today. For the past, 16 years, I've had the chance to represent my hometown, first in the Massachusetts House, and lately in the past 6 years in the Massachusetts Senate, where I've got a chance to learn from people, like my predecessors in the legislature, and the governor, lieutenant governor, and of course mayors in my Senate district, about the best way to deliver good services locally here for my community. I hope to take those skills that I've learned and the knowledge I have about a broad series and array of local topics and provide the best representation for you as mayor in City Hall in Westfield. So thank you.
Mike McCabe, your opening statement, please.
Well, thanks, Rich. My name is Mike McCabe. I am currently a police captain in the city of Westfield. I'm also an adjunct professor at Westfield State University. I serve on a number of boards and commissions throughout the city. I have been a police officer for the city of Westfield for the past 35 years, which has been a very rewarding thing for me. It means that I've actually been in a position where I've been doing problem solving for a number of years that have positively affected the quality of life in the city of Westfield. I'm very proud of record, and I've worked hard to make sure that I have those contacts across the aisle in City Hall to understand what they do, to understand how the city works, how budgets work, how contracts work, and I hope to be your next mayor.
We now move on to the question and answer session of our debate, and I'll ask a question. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. The order of questions was determined by a drawing as well, and by virtue of that, Mike McCabe, you get to answer the first question. Both of you, both candidates, have high-profile positions in the Westfield community. Why now do you want to be mayor of Westfield?
Well, I've wanted to be mayor of Westfield for a little while now. So for the past decade or so, my wife Jennifer and I have been kind of talking about me running for mayor. I see some things truly that I can improve on in our great city, and we truly have a great city. It offers a myriad of different services that other cities don't offer. But there are some things that really, I think with my organizational management background, my ability to understand how the city runs, and my ability to understand how budgets work, I think that I can make some improvements on the ground that will better our city and prioritize our management so that we can get our goals that we set up as a community fixed. And there's a couple of things that we can really work on. So I'm happy to do that, and I have the energy to pull it off, I believe.
Mike, of course, a police captain with Westfield Police. Don Humison, a state senator. Why now do you want to become mayor of Westfield?
Some of that decision was made by Brian Sullivan when he made the announcement that he wasn't going to be running for re-election. That position opened up. Obviously, as Mike said, some of us have had an interest in the position for quite a long time. I'm a lifelong Westfield resident. I was born and raised and went to school and live in the city. I love the community, and I've always thought about the idea of being mayor. Of course, I've had the great opportunity over the past, as I said, 16 plus years to serve at a different level, at the state level, as representative and senator, learning the ropes, basically spending my time in the trenches, learning about city issues, learning about local and state issues, so that when the opportunity would finally come, and as it has now, I can jump right into the seat and hopefully hit the ground running, to be able to represent my city as their mayor, to be the figurehead for the community, to be the collaborator, to work with our city council, our school committee members, our G&E commissioners, and other elected officials to get things done for Westfield.
PFAS contamination has been a big story in Westfield. Of course, the Westfield water supply contaminated, and it's been a major issue in the city over the past few years. What do you think about the city's response to the issue so far, and what would you do as mayor going forward?
We've talked about this in other forums. Obviously, the city has already chosen a course of action through the mayor and the council and the water commission, and their response up to this point has been to do a GAC filter system to try to remove the PFAS from the well water in the city of Westfield. I'm going to make it clear that not every well in the city is contaminated, not every drop of water in Westfield is bad. I worry about that message getting out that may scare people. But obviously, our community, our citizens have a right to clean water. It is an obligation of government to provide that. As somebody who would be coming into the position of mayor, I think I have to respect the process as it's begun. But it's important that if that process isn't working and the water is not of sufficient quality for the people, both in the north end of Westfield and also around the city to drink, then we have to look at other options as well.
Mike, what do you think about the issue, and what would you do as mayor to keep it ongoing?
Well, what I think they did in 2016 was absolutely the appropriate thing to do. But in the last 6 months, really, as a police captain, I don't normally get involved in water issues, but in order to bring myself up to speed, I've studied PFAS contamination, I've studied reverse osmosis, I've studied GAC filters, I've studied the China study, the Sweden study, the Cape Fear study, a myriad of different things. And I really am convinced that what the city of Westfield did was appropriate for that issue. However, that said, there are still a couple of other avenues that the city of Westfield should look at. I'm not saying change over to, but I said, but I mean should look at. There's a Cabot Road aquifer. There's also another source of water out of Springfield that has a parallel line with us. But I can tell you this as your mayor, and I hope to be your mayor, is that I wouldn't want to be beholden to another community to buy their water from them.
Here's another issue that comes up in the news quite frequently, and that's the issue of road conditions. And it's not unique to every city, but it seems like Westfield has a lot of problems with potholes and rough road conditions in part of the city. As mayor, what would you do to improve the quality of the city's roads?
Well, I don't know that I can change the weather. So we have a little issue with the weather. We're uniquely situated between two very large, two water sources and two mountains. So that gives us a little difficulty with our geography. Another thing that's adding to that difficulty with our geography is we have over 239 miles of road that we have to maintain in the city. That said, however, what we really need to do is prioritize how we do the work. So we should do the work by addressing our stormwater runoff. We should do the work by addressing our drainage systems from that water runoff. We should do the work of clearing arborally clearing the trees of the overhanging branches that cause the roads never really to dry out. And then we go to work on the bedding of the road and laying the pavement on it.
Don, what's your solution to the city's quality of streets program?
Rich, all of us
here?
up here are Westfield residents. We have to deal with the roads all the time. Nobody likes the reputation of pothole city. That's not good for us as a community when it comes to bringing residents or businesses into the community, so we've got to address it. It's what we're all hearing on the campaign trail. And I think what you do is you make a plan. You sit down with DPW, you sit down with the councilors, because it has to be an issue that's addressed not just in the center core of the city, but also in the residential neighborhoods. Those roads need to be repaired as well. You obviously, I think, look at prioritizing the worst first, to repair those roads or to bring them or to replace them if necessary. I point out the example of Western Avenue, which is being worked on right now. It is a nightmare project, but when it is done, we're all going to look back and go, oh my gosh, it's finally finished. There are a number of streets that are planned to be renovated. In fact, just yesterday we passed a supplemental budget in the state that's going to give the cities and towns a little bit more money to do more projects just this year, and I'm glad about that.
Gentlemen, we're hitting all the issues here. We've hit water, and we've hit roads, and now it's opioids. The opioid crisis, of course, a major problem across the Northeast, including in Westfield. Don, we'll start with you. What can the city of Westfield do to help people in recovery and prevent overdose deaths?
Well, I want to give a lot of credit, obviously, to Governor Baker and his administration, to Mayor Sullivan and his administration in the city for putting together an opioid task force and bringing people like the police department, the fire department, and the schools together, as well as the local politicians and everybody who has a say in this issue. It's a tragedy that impacts our community. It's a tragedy that impacts anybody, anywhere. But I think we have to be sensitive to it. I think there's a stigma that has to be continually dealt with to eliminate that stigma, and the goal is to provide services to people who need that help. And we hear constantly from folks who want it, who want the care, who want the treatment, but can't find it. Thankfully, Sheriff Koshy is doing his part to provide what I believe are excellent services right here in Western Massachusetts. I know the Commonwealth is trying to do more with providing funding for more beds so that our residents can get to them when they need them, but it's a tragedy that impacts people everywhere.
Mike, what can Westfield do to help people in recovery and also help prevent overdose deaths?
Well, I'm going to talk about Sheriff Cochee for a second. Sheriff Cochee's got a Section 35 program that lasts for 48 days. That is double the number of days that you get from an insurance, or if you have no insurance, you have no chance. But when we talk about opioid epidemic, I don't think we really understand what the true nature of the problem is or how big the problem is in the city of Westfield. We've had 58 overdoses this year, 11 of which have resulted in death. When you bar graph the amount of opioid overdoses and the amount of deaths that have gone from 2014 to present, it is a straight bar, kind of like the tax levy, and it is not abating. So rather than continuously meet and greet, there really has to be grist to the mill. It is absolutely unconscionable to me that at the state level we don't have programs that people can access when they need it at the time that they want it.
Okay, so far so good. We are at the halfway point of our debate. We will be back with more questions and answers for the candidates running for mayor of Westfield after a short break. You're watching 22 News. Welcome back to our special Your Election Headquarters presentation today. We're hosting a debate among the candidates running for mayor of Westfield. Joining me is Police Captain Mike McCabe and State Senator Don Humison. And our next question goes to Mike McCabe. Westfield has a mayoral term of 2 years, but many other local cities, including Northampton, Springfield, Holyoke, and West Springfield, have switched to 4-year terms for their mayors. Would you like to see Westfield adopt the 4-year mayoral term or keep the current 2-year term?
Without question, I would like to see the city of Westfield's mayoral term be 4 years. And here's why. I talk a lot about waste in government, but I don't talk about waste in terms of economic waste in the budget. I talk about waste in government on the learning curve time. So not only do you have these profound learning curves, but then you wind up with candidates who have to go right back to the people that helped fund them the first time, now have to go back to them a second time on an every 2-year cycle. To me, that just adds into the old boy patronage system of what we have. If you had a 4-year term, you would be able to at least steward some of your plans through and see them to the end. There's an additional cost that's associated in this year's preliminary election, and in its next election, it'll cost the taxpayer $80,000. So it simply doesn't make sense to have a 2-year cycle. If you are a small business, medium-sized corporation, or Fortune 500 company, would you ever consider turning over your CEO and your entire board of directors every 2 years? You couldn't sell your product. Our product is service. When you turn over your leadership, you completely decentralize the administration below it.
That's time right now, okay? Don Humison, 2-year term or 4-year term for Westfield mayor?
Well, it's set up for a 2-year term, I think, for a reason. And I would go back to abiding by the will of the people. It isn't in the distant past, but just 2 years ago that this question was on the ballot in Westfield, where the people had the chance to vote on whether they wanted a 2-year term for their mayor or a 4-year term. And the people chose by a margin of, I think, 67 to 33% that they wanted a 2-year term. And they're not wrong, and I'll tell you why. If you have a great mayor, that's wonderful. But if you have a bad mayor, you're stuck with him for 4 years. The other issue is that when you have a mayor that stays in that position for 4 years, it drives down the voter turnout. We have already seen that it's difficult to get voters to come out to the polls right now. We're hoping to get 45% of the turnout on November 5th to come and vote for us. If you have a 4-year term, the council members who are trying to run for re-election don't have a prayer because no one's coming out. The mayor's already in office. So the people have already spoken. I tend to abide by their will, and I think if they want a 2-year term, that's their right to have it.
Okay, we have a difference of opinion right there. Sure. Now, leaders in Westfield have worked very hard over the years to keep and grow businesses in the downtown area. What else do you think can be done to make downtown Westfield more of a destination for people throughout this area?
I think in a lot of ways we are. I'm pleased that we're starting to turn our downtown around. If you haven't been down to downtown Westfield recently, I invite you to come. We have a number of shops and restaurants that are bringing people in. We have community organizations that are putting on tremendous events like Westfield on Weekend. The Pumpkin Festival just this past weekend brought in thousands and thousands of people of all ages to shop and to enjoy themselves in our community. I think downtown is important. We've talked in other forums about the East Main Street corridor where we have some vacant shops. We also have some industrial space on the north side and other areas around the city. I think what the mayor needs to do is serve as a cheerleader for the community, serve as a person who can actually reach out and be the head of the sales force to market Westfield to businesses of all sizes and to industry to come into our community to expand our tax base and to employ our local citizens. I think that's important for the mayor to do, and I think I'm in the position to be able to do that well.
Mike, how can we make Westfield a destination for downtown?
So when you look at downtown and you look at the Newberry's lot, which is the vacant lot that exists, that was privately owned and now has finally come up for sale, there is a request for proposal currently that should be hitting this week to maybe change the landscape of downtown. But one of the things that have gone on really well downtown is public safety. So I have knocked on 2,400 doors and I've never heard a word yet of anybody complaining about their safety in that corridor. So it's a matter, and Don's right about this, it's a matter of being able to be a good cheerleader. If we keep beating ourselves up on our road, our water, and some of the other things that are adversely affecting, we can't really cheerlead all that well. So it's a matter of fixing those things and then getting ourselves in line with our Gaslight District and seeing what that framework looks like. Because you can't smile pretty if you're missing your two front teeth. I mean, you just can't. And that's what we've faced now for the last 30 years.
All right, you get the next question. Mike, Amazon is opening up a major distribution center in Holyoke, and Wayfair recently opened up a new sales and service facility in Pittsfield. Do you think that Westfield is well suited for major developments like these? And if so, what would you do to bring them in?
So we are well suited. As I said, we have a pretty good infrastructure. We have a great utility system. So Westfield is one of those wonderfully benefited areas that has a Westfield Gas and Electric Light Department located right here. So if you get a bomb cyclone or you get an unexpected tornado, God forbid, or if you get some sort of weather emergency, our guys hit the ground running and they go right there. It is one of the principal reasons why I do not want to send our water resources elsewhere. I think when people look to come into the community, and I have toured Western Mass Electric, I have toured Advanced Manufacturing, Savage Arms, Meztec, Angie's Food, Westfield Electroplating. All of those people are grateful to the city because they have those resources here. If you want it, the infrastructure is here to build it.
Don, major developments here in Westfield.
Yeah, we've got the space, we've got the workforce, we have the college, we have a number of people just raring to go, and I think we offer a great location, being on the, on the crossroads with the Turnpike Exit 3. We have a rail spur going through the CSX rail line runs right through Westfield. Pioneer Valley Railroad can provide infrastructure, driving, taking trucks off the road, and actually bringing the industry, the packages in and out of the community without really tying up traffic. We also have Barnes Airport, which is a good thing. So, we're placed pretty well in the region, and I think we're open and excited for it. Obviously, the goal is to make sure that it has as little impact on the residents and on traffic as possible. And that's something that the mayor would work with our zoning board and others to make sure we don't hurt the residents of our city.
You get the next question. Retail's been in decline now for the last few years, of course, and a good example is the Bon-Ton closing in Westfield. The city has several large retailers along Route 20. How will the city adjust to the possible loss of tax revenue if more retailers continue to close their stores or go out of business altogether? Yeah,
a question that's impacting and affecting government at all levels. I was on the retail task force at the state Senate, and we looked across the state at what's happening, and it obviously isn't just something impacting Massachusetts or even impacting Westfield. As people's habits change, as they go more towards the internet, we do run the risk of losing that retail base. I think we're seeing a bit of a bump now with millennials who originally we thought wanted to go to all internet sales. Now they want to have a place to go back and try clothes on, to actually hold something before they buy it. It's a matter of trying to find the right fit for our community. And as I just said a moment ago, we are well placed for a number of businesses, and whether it's a small industry or large or retail, I think Westfield needs to do a job of selling itself to make sure that those dealers out there, those businesses out there, know that we're open for business in Westfield.
Mike, what do you do if you have major retailers leaving, you have these empty storefronts?
You have to market that Westfield is the place to be. Not only is Westfield the place to be to buy things, it's the place to be to live. It's the place to go downtown, meet people. Right now we have probably 10 local eateries downtown that are thriving. There's Mama Cakes, there's Circuit Coffee, there's Alo Saigon, there's Yummy Noodle, there's It Takes Two Bakery, there's Leo's Gallery Deli. Those are all generated, have really started to pick up with the advent of the college moving a much larger footprint off campus. So they've gone from 400 to 2,000 people off campus, which has helped the vibrancy of downtown. You look at Westfield Wow, Westfield on the weekends, you look at the Creative Arts Center. Those are really things that people want to see. Now what's interesting about that is when they're down there, now they're saying, well, what about the little shops and boutiques that we could buy shoes and pocketbooks at? So those are really the marketing areas that you have to look at. I don't know if the large-scale box stores are really the right mix anymore.
Time right now. Okay, we're up to another question here. It's about plastic bags. They've been banned in many communities around Western Massachusetts, but Westfield has not done that yet. Would you support a ban if that is proposed? Why and why not?
I haven't really thought about plastic bags. So I don't really want to say. When you ban something, you really should be taking a look at what the adverse effect is all the way up and down those two spectrums. So I don't know how they're made, I don't know how paper's recycled, all of those things would have to come in to give you a real good answer for that. And I don't have a position one way or the other.
Don?
Yeah, I've taken the position as a state senator that that's not my thing. I don't really think about the idea of banning a product. If the local community does it organically and is its groundswell of voices from the people of my city saying that's something that they're interested in doing, let them take it through to the council, let them take it through to the people and make that decision. For me, I want to focus on the priorities of expanding the tax base in Westfield, bringing good, appropriate businesses into the city, helping keep the people safe and keeping the water good in our community. That's my priority, but obviously I hope to be in a position to listen to whatever the interests are of the people that I represent as mayor.
Guys, how many times you walked into Big Wide, though, without your bags? You got to go back out to
You
the
are
car.
in trouble.
I've done that a number of times
I'm
already.
embarrassed to say that I've done it.
I got them in my truck. Yeah.
There you go. So you know how that is. All right, you have 30 seconds to answer this next question. Don, you start off with this. How would you characterize crime safety in the city of Westfield, and what, if anything, would you do differently as mayor in regard to public safety? 30 seconds.
I'll start by saying thank you, Captain McCabe, to you and the men and women whom you represent on our police department. I think we have, by and large, for the size of our city, a very safe community. I know people love to read the paper and look at the police logs and find out what's going wrong in our city, but I think Westfield is a safe community, and kudos to you and the men and women that you represent on the force.
Captain McCabe?
Right now, what you have to do is you have to engage in problem solving. So that means you have to find out what your hot spots are, what really generates your calls for service, and then send people to actually respond to those calls for service. But once you give that initial call for service, then you have to do the follow-up on that as well. Much like what was done up at the Hampden Ponds area with their Marine Patrol that we were just feted for yesterday. There was a problem up there, and we worked collaboratively with the community to solve it.
Okay, it's time for closing statements now. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. We held a drawing to determine the order of that as well. And Don Humison, you deliver our first closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Thank you, Mike, and thank all of you for watching. My name is Don Humison. I am very pleased to be a lifelong resident of the city of Westfield. It has been my home since I was born at Noble Hospital. I was very pleased to be able to bring my wife from Boston out to Westfield, and now we make a very happy home there for our son, Quinn, who is obviously, by the way, the joy of my life. And the reason I'm really doing this job, I use Quinn as the example of other children and other families in this community. I know that if I can do well by him, I can do well by other people who live in the city of Westfield. I'd like to take the experiences that I've earned or gained over the past 28 years in different positions with the state government to be able to hit the ground running as your mayor. I'd like to use a collaborative style, working with other elected officials and department heads to address the concerns that you bring to us, and to make sure that we can do a good job letting people know that Westfield is a great city. There's no problems that we can't solve if we work together, and together we can make sure that it is a great community. I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you for your time today.
Mike McCabe, your closing statement.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Don. I've been working, as stated before, for 35 years, but not only have I been working for 35 years with the police department, but I've got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a graduate degree in public administration and criminal justice, and I got the opportunity to go to the FBI National Academy, which was a program that specifically was geared towards executive leadership and budget management for municipal agencies. During that time, I learned the various parts of budgeting, the various parts of labor, and really how municipal government is supposed to work. So I'm almost in a position where I think that, you know, this is something that I'm infinitely qualified to do. I've also been an advocate for the city of Westfield, specifically its children, for at least the last 20 years, where I serve as the vice president of the board of directors of the Boys and Girls Club, and I've been a coach for kids for at least all the way through my daughter's growing up period for the last 10 years or so. So I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to do, and I hope to be your mayor in the future, and I look forward to bringing the energy necessary to do the job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, and that's all the time we have for today's program. We would like to thank Don Humison and Mike McCabe for participating. If you missed any of today's debate, you can watch it in its entirety on our website at WWLP.com. Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Be sure to vote and make your voice heard. I'm Rich Teddemer. Have a good afternoon. See ya.